All right. Welcome back to a second episode of Life in the Stands podcast. We got Jake and Zach here again today. We're going to do some more playoff predictions, talk about what happened in this week's divisional games, get into some other yearly awards in the NFL, and also talk about some things that are going on in the NBA today as we approach the trade deadline. So it should be a good show today.
Yeah, so to kick it off, do you want to give us your thoughts on this past weekend's games and give us your predictions to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that'll be fun. So, this weekend's games were definitely interesting. The Jags Chiefs game I thought was kind of boring. Played out exactly how I thought it was going to. I thought the Chiefs were going to kind of outclass the Jaguars, and it seems like when the Jaguars first came out, they were a little shell shocked as they looked in the first playoff game they had too. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a good QB like in the NFL for a long time. I think he's going to figure it out. Doug Peterson's obviously a really good coach, but the Chiefs were just too much for him. I think that's kind of what everyone expected. So that went how it should have. The Bills and the Bengals went opposite how I thought it was going to. I thought for sure the Bills were going to come out and they were just going to steamroll the Bengals. I thought they were going to be really emotional after what happened the first time those two teams played. Like Damar Hamlin being there at the game, I thought was a really big deal too. I was not expecting the Bills to come out that flat, and it makes me scared for the Chiefs. It makes me really scared for the Chiefs. We can talk about where I think that's going to go. And then as far as some of the NFC games, Cowboys Niners, that was an interesting game to watch. I know you're a Cowboys fan, so I know it's a little upsetting, but I
Sad
do
day,
think the
sad
Niners
day.
just have too much. I picked my Niners as the sleeper team, right? I picked the Niners as a sleeper team, so I do think that they have enough there. Brock Purdy doesn't look like a rookie. He looks like more of a three or four, like a third or fourth year guy. Like he definitely was a little bit more inconsistent in last night's game, a little bit slower out of the gates. It seemed like they're a little more conservative with him, but I think they'll figure it out, and I think they have a chance to go in there to Lincoln Financial Field, and then it's not even worth talking about the Eagles Giants game because that was just ridiculous. I think,
That was tragic.
yeah, if anything comes out of that, the Giants just might not sign Daniel Jones back. Um, I think before that playoff game, they thought for sure like Daniel Jones is the next QB, and now it's like, oh, that should scare some people. So, that's kind of my take on the divisional games. But then, as far as my Super Bowl prediction, it's really tough with Chiefs Bengals, and it's really tough with Niners Eagles. I feel like you could really go like either way with both of those teams. But for me, I think that it's tough. It's tough. I think I'm going to go like Eagles Chiefs for my Super Bowl. So I think the Eagles will beat the Niners. I'm just going to give them the home field advantage, which is really why I'm taking the Eagles in that situation. The Niners were my sleeper pick. Both of them have really good rosters. I don't think you can pick and choose like skill guys to skill guys. I think it's very even. Trenches to trenches, I think it's very even. Defensive playmaking, I think it's pretty even. So I don't know if you can really give an advantage to either one of those teams. And then as far as Chiefs Bengals go, the Bengals have really had the Chiefs number, which would scare me a little bit, and they manhandled the Bills. But Patrick Mahomes is a really good quarterback. Even if he's injured, I feel like that might actually change the game plan. Most of the time, the Chiefs are going to come out. They're going to allow him to get out of the pocket a little bit. They're going to allow him to do some of that off timing kinds of things. I think them being a more consistent timing oriented team might surprise the Bengals a little bit. I think they might try to be a little bit too aggressive with Patrick Mahomes' injury. Chiefs are at home. I think they know the Bengals have had their number. I think the Chiefs will pull that one out because they're going to want to show that they are still the best of the best in the AFC. So I think we're going to have an Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl. And I know that was long winded, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on like divisional weekend and where I think that's going to go. What do you think?
Yeah, and to build off what you just said, you have to give credit to Chad Henne coming in for a drive or two. The old
True,
man Chad
true.
Henne coming in, picking up, where Mahomes left off.
OG.
I kind of expected Trevor Lawrence to play a little bit better. I think the way they started was like, oh, there's hope. Like they responded right away because obviously the Chiefs usually come out rolling, doing their thing. I think it's still kind of a young team. It's good to get a playoff win under his belt. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a team that tries to pursue a guy like DeAndre Hopkins next year to try
Mm.
and build upon what they have going on there. Because I think with the progress they made, they might be in a win now scenario. Um, I'm not too worried about the Bengals Chiefs game though. That's coming up. The Bengals throttled the Bills. The Bills look pathetic in that game. I don't even want to talk about that. And now they have
Yeah.
issues with Diggs and Allen chirping. Diggs has
Hmm.
always been like that though. Diggs always wants the ball, and obviously, if he has a bad game, you're going to hear it.
Had problems with Kirk too. So
Yeah, I was gonna say another failed year for the Bills. Don't know what else they want to do on that, especially since Von Miller was supposed to be their big signing, and he got hurt at an unfortunate time where he couldn't come back for playoffs. So they had no pass rushing against probably the worst offensive line in the league, in my opinion.
hmm
Burrow's been running for his life his whole career so far.
hmm
Um,
and they were missing two starters on that offensive line too, and the Bills couldn't even take advantage of it.
yeah, honestly, I feel like having those second and third string linemen in might be better than their first string, to be honest, with the way they were playing.
Yeah, yeah.
But going to the NFC, I don't even want to talk about the Giants. I think the Giants will get Daniel Jones back next year, regardless, because they did make progress. I feel like it's just a way to keep them in a winning scenario, but I don't think he's good enough to win. I wouldn't be surprised if they like just keep Saquon and just keep Daniel Jones. They will not keep both of them. I doubt they will keep both of them.
How long of a
Um,
contract they're going to give to Daniel Jones? You think they're going to sign him just like back to like a 1 year kind of a thing? If you think they're going to keep him?
no, I think it might be like something like a 2+1, maybe.
Mm. Okay.
Like a team option on a third. They might give him
hmm
another year or two to see what happens because he's still young and they figured out how to use his legs.
Yeah.
Um, the Niners Cowboys game, I don't really want to talk about that one either because Cowboys look pathetic on offense. On the bright side, Maher learned how to kick again. Um, our defense played really well. I think the Kittle catch in the middle of the field kind of gave them the momentum they needed, and it was kind of just game over from there, especially since we couldn't score after our first touchdown that we got. Dak, hot take, but Dak really needs to go. We need to find something else because I'm sick and tired of it. I know it was just this year that he was sketchy, but all of the teams that are in conference championships almost every year, besides maybe Brock Purdy because he's an outlier in this situation, are elite. I'm going to put you on my back quarterbacks. Um,
Yeah.
for the prediction with the Niners and the Eagles, I have the Niners winning that game. I think it's the only defense that can get in Jalen Hurts' head. They have an all pro at every level between like Bosa and Fred Warner. I know I'm missing somebody in the secondary. Um, but still,
Hufunga.
like if you can get him, I can't even pronounce that name. Um, so if you have an all pro at every level and you're the top defense in the league, I don't think the Eagles have seen anything like that all year. And I know the Cowboys have a top defense, but I'd like to say our schedule was pretty weak this year, so it looks real good for us. Um, and I don't like the Eagles, so they can lose all they want to. But
Yeah.
the Bengals, I think, have always had the Bills number, B, the Chiefs number. So now, can the Chiefs put that behind them? Can Mahomes be healthy prior to game time? I don't know. I think we got a Bengals and Niners Super Bowl coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't argue with it. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue. Like I said, I think Niners Eagles is super close. I don't mind taking either of those teams. Niners were my sleeper, even though they had that rookie QB. So I don't mind any of that. And then I definitely don't mind taking the Bengals either. Something just tells me that Mahomes is going to get that big old cortisone shot in his ankle before the game, and he's going to be all taped up, and somehow the game plan is going to be different. I just think like somehow the Chiefs are going to do something different that the Bengals aren't expecting, that the Bengals haven't seen.
In that in
It'll be
that
interesting.
in that Chad Henne drive, Pacheco showed out on that drive too, so I wouldn't put
hmm
it past him.
Yep. Yeah,
But
it could happen.
moving on here, moving on here. I'm going to talk about yearly awards, but I want to hear your opinions first. We're going to start with the MVP. So, who do you have as the league's MVP this year?
Yeah, for me this year it's easy. I think it should be Patrick Mahomes. I think I think he leads the league in passing yards, leads the league in touchdowns this year. He did it with Tyreek Hill leaving. I said it before in the first podcast, but when Tyreek Hill left, I think a lot of people assumed that the Chiefs offense would just not be as explosive. But Patrick Mahomes also has the most completions over 20 yards, I believe, this year. So the Chiefs offense is even more explosive than ever. I think they have such a unique play calling style with Andy Reid. You hear them talk about how players get to bring him play ideas and players get to ad lib things on the fly. When you have all pros again at every level, like the Niners do in defense, they have all pros at every level on the Kansas City offense. Pacheco is a really good young running back. Um, Travis Kelce is a great tight end, but I don't think any of those guys are as great as they are without the guy dishing them all the ball. I think it takes that crux, that him being there. I know Chad Henne came in and looked good, but you can't argue with the success that Mahomes has had, the record he got them to, and I feel like every year people try to find a reason to discount the Chiefs, and every year that the one seed. Like they talk
Yeah,
about the AFC Championship game being the Arrowhead Invitational, right? Like I think that's the way things go. I think it falls to be his second MVP. I think it's his second MVP. I think he'll win it this year.
yeah. Unfortunate as a Cowboys fan, but I think it's Jalen Hurts. I think the acquisition
Surprising,
during
Bender.
yeah, I think the acquisition during the draft, getting AJ Brown, unlocked him. It gave him basically a wide receiver 1A and 1B, because I wouldn't put it past Smith being a number one option on any other team. Um, and they figured out how to use his legs even more than what they did last year. They were increasing it towards the end of last year, if I am correct on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just him being able to kind of carry the offense on his back, and their offensive line's actually been performing really well, allowing him to do more than what he's used to as well. You'll see
Yeah.
in the red zone, he does a lot of quarterback draws or quarterback designed runs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's going to be a common thing. He's almost being used as like a Lamar Jackson when he's healthy, except I think Jalen Hurts is the better throwing quarterback between the two. And that can be a
Yeah.
conversation for a different day, because obviously
Mm-hmm.
there's Lamar Jackson drama going on.
Yeah.
But um,
And Lamar,
I
people
think
forget
Jalen,
Lamar had a season with like 4,500 yards and like 40 touchdowns or something like that. Like people forget he had a passing season like that.
yeah, and I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying I think Jalen Hurts is going to be better, if not already better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or put weapons around Lamar and see what happens.
Yeah. With a
Ravens
new
front
OC,
office.
yeah, with a new OC, maybe that'll happen.
Yeah. So I kind of also want to make it a point that like they rotate running backs in and out as well. And I think that's kind of like a disguise for Jalen Hurts in a way. And I feel like the run game wasn't very good last year. Again, I said the offensive line was playing well, and I know the run game is like improved this year, and it's because of Jalen Hurts and what he's doing. But Miles Sanders was hot for majority of the year, and nobody
Mm-hmm.
talks about him. Um, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like he's been under the radar his whole career, especially playing behind Saquon at Penn State and everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not many people want to talk about him, but I'd like to give him his props where it's due as well.
Yeah.
Um,
For real. For real.
Speaking
That
of a
offense.
bunch of, ooh, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say. I was gonna say you're talking a lot about the Eagles' offensive line, the way they manhandled the Giants in that playoff game. Like I was watching some of those clips, and like Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, like good defensive linemen were being displaced 4 yards in the defensive backfield. Like it was crazy. That offensive line is is legit. They might have 3 All-Pros, 4 All-Pros on that offensive line. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure. Since we've been talking a lot about offense here, who's your offensive player of the year?
Yeah, that's a good transition. Offensive player of the year for me is going to be Justin Jefferson. I think, that dude has had, he had a breakout year, obviously, his rookie year. He's climbed another ladder. He had the catch of the year against the Bills. Tops in receiving yard, tops in touchdowns, tops in every statistical category that you want a receiver to be in. He's dealing with Kirk Cousins as a quarterback. Um, so I got to give it to Justin Jefferson. I think that dude is an animal. I don't see it giving to anyone else.
Well, I actually have it being Tyreek Hill. And I think if you're not going to give an MVP award to a running back or wide receiver, I think Tyreek Hill should be mentioned in the Offensive Player of the Year. He's out here breaking records, and I know they have Jalen Waddle next to him and everything like that, but I think he's the reason for why people are believing in Tua again.
Mm-hmm.
So I know Mahomes is doing his thing wherever, and they're obviously doing the debate that you mentioned earlier with, oh, is it Mahomes or is it Tyreek, or is Mahomes going to fall off with him gone? It worked out for both of them.
Yeah,
Tyreek is putting up big numbers, or was putting up big numbers, because Tua couldn't make it for the playoffs; so they were just done for.
yeah,
But yeah, I just think he made a big impact on that team and kind of transitioned them and transitioned Tua and helped Tua progress. So I think it deserves to be at least looked at. Justin Jefferson is right there, and Tyreek Hill are right there. I feel like it's kind of a toss up.
yeah.
Um,
Win-win trade,
but
though. You're
yeah,
right.
yeah, for sure. Um, let's flip to the other side of the ball because I feel like we're talking too much about offense right now. So let's go to your side of the ball. You used to be a linebacker back in the day, so I'd like to hear your opinion on the defensive player of the year.
Yeah, defense is far more my stuff. Far prefer defense versus offense. There's just less rules. You get to do more things that you shouldn't be allowed to do off a football field, like full on assault people. It's just way more fun. So I think my defensive player of the year is Nick Bosa. That dude, that dude's an animal. I actually was watching like clips of him in like preseason, and I've never seen so many like tendons in a dude's thigh before. They were showing clips of him like getting off the ball, just like practicing like different like get offs, and he was like switching his feet back and forth, trying to like line up different moves and like he went back to like a sprinter stance for the one move that he was trying to set up, and I just like literally rewinded just so I'd be like, look at that dude's thigh, like he's gigantic. But I really think he's a defensive player of the year. Had a breakout year in sacks. The Niners are the number one defense. A lot of the times with defense too, the front seven and the front four really controls the pace of the game. A front four that's dominant will make a front seven look really, really good. A front four that's dominant will make a back four look really, really good. Make their secondary look really good. So I think it all starts up front, and Nick Bosa is a key part to that. So he's my defensive player of the year. But I'd love to hear your thoughts too, especially because being a Cowboys fan, I know you got a contender on that team.
Yeah, so if you want to talk about a front four, I think Micah is a part of that, and I feel like it's not just putting him in pass rushing situations. He's able to go out in coverage. Um, that doesn't really back up my argument in the case of the Niners game this past weekend because McCaffrey burnt him a time or two for a first down. That's great play calling by Shanahan. If you
Yeah.
watch the plays that it happened on, trying to get him to move out and kind of isolate him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do believe Micah is a leader of that whole entire team, not just defense. I think offense, because I think he's the voice of the team. Obviously, you hear things on podcasts he'll be on and make comments and about like the Niners are the team he wants to see, and that little beef with him and Debo. To
Mm-hmm.
be honest, nobody did anything special in that game except for maybe George Kittle, and that might be a hot take too. But George Kittle was the difference maker. McCaffrey obviously got his work in, getting a touchdown, and all that. But he was even limping throughout that whole game.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Micah, I feel like is also thriving off of like the overall defense that we have, having Diggs as a playmaker, as a corner, and the other side of the front four with DeMarcus Lawrence, who is an All Pro and going to be a Pro Bowler again. Like they're all studs, and I think that's the case of Nick Bosa. He's got Warner and Hufunga and all them guys that are also helping him look good or look better because there is
Yeah.
coverage sacks. So you kind of
Mm-hmm.
have to give credit to the overall defense when you talk about anyone.
For sure.
But we are going to move on to our next segment here, and we've done this last time where we are going to do rapid fire questions. And I'm going to ask Zach rapid fire NFL questions again today. Football guru, better give me some good answers, some interesting answers here.
Yeah. Football guru from the stands.
Yes, sir. Let me just pull up the timer real quick. We're going to put a
Yeah.
minute.
As you're pulling up that timer, I want to touch on something you said too, where you said it might be a hot take, but Kittle was the only one that really did something special in that game. I kind of agree. Like he was the only guy that jumped off the screen. I feel like everything else that was like a big player that happened in that game was much more on the coaches than anything else. Like when the Cowboys had their
Yeah.
touchdown drive, it was play calling. When the Niners are moving the ball, it's 100% because Shanahan was putting their guys in positions. Like those little motions, like you said with McCaffrey and stuff, just lining every like. I think it was far more in the play caller. So I will agree with that. I don't think it's much of a hot take. If you watch the game, like
Yeah.
Kittle was the only guy that jumped off the screen.
I think Eli Mitchell got their run game going in that fourth quarter as well, with
That's true too.
McCaffrey
Yeah.
limping around, even though he ran out of bounds. I get it, but y'all still won the game. So
Dummy.
yeah, gotta
Slide.
gotta
Slide,
know the clock.
Mitchell.
Gotta know the clock.
Yeah, for real.
At Dalton Schultz and rules. Thanks. Um,
Yeah.
so are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go. More pass yards, Mahomes or Burrow?
For next season? Or in this game?
This game.
Burrow.
More receiving yards, Jamar or Kelsey?
Kelsey.
More rushing yards, Niners or Eagles?
That's a good one. I'm going to take Eagles on that one because I think they'll get more out of Jalen Hurts than they will out of Brock Purdy, and I think the running backs will be kind of equal.
Gotcha. More sacks, Niners or Eagles?
Got to go Eagles with that one. They have the most sacks in the league. They had 4 guys with 10+ sacks. This year is the first time it's ever happened in NFL history. They sacked the quarterback. I think it'll be the Eagles.
Will Jalen Hurts have 3 total touchdowns?
No, I don't think so. I think it'll be a defensive game.
Will Brock Purdy be the starter next year?
I think so. Yeah. At this point, Trey Lance probably doesn't make it back for the start of the season. If Jimmy G comes back and replaces him, that would also be really surprising to me. You got a guy who's literally a rookie on that cheap of a contract. I think you got to make him your starter. I don't see how you don't.
And that's it then. That's our 1 minute of rapid fire questions here. Some interesting takes on that for sure. And I do believe the Niners will move on from Jimmy G if they decide to keep both of them.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting in general. Like if you have Jimmy G, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, you get rid of Jimmy G. Now you have Trey Lance and Purdy there. That's an interesting scenario because I would say Trey Lance is definitely a little bit more, more suitable with his legs, right? He definitely gets out a little bit more. He wants to run more. Purdy looks a little bit more like a pocket quarterback, and when he does use his legs, it's to extend the play to throw the ball downfield. I wonder if we'll see like a Taysom Hill kind of a situation with Trey Lance or something along those lines where they might do a little dual quarterback kinds of things to try to utilize Trey Lance's legs a little bit more. Because when he was out there, he didn't look good throwing the ball, but he sure looked fast. He looked really fast, kind of like Malik Willis did. But anyway, moving on from the NFL, we've talked a lot of NFL. We're going to transition into a little bit of some NBA stuff as we're approaching the All-Star break a little bit. Bender, what teams do you think are kind of like heating up right now? We're hitting like the mid-season point. It's far enough into the season where we've like figured out some things about some teams. Who's heating up for you right now?
Hey man, I gotta get my man Joel Embiid some time here because
There
I'm
he is.
actually choosing the Sixers because they're actually really hot right now, and I believe they only lost maybe 4 or 5 games in the last like 22-ish games, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the guys that missed time throughout the season between Maxey, Harden, a little bit of Embiid, not too much this year, thank goodness. But a lot of those bench guys, Shake Milton wasn't getting a lot of time prior to all those injuries. Obviously, when you have a bunch of guards go down, you need somebody to step up, and he's done it before. And they plugged him right into the lineup, and he got hot. I believe George Niang got hot at the time. Melton was having big games.
Yeah.
And that was, I thought, one of the best pickups we've had in a while, rotation wise, in the last couple of years. It beats having Josh Richardson and Al Horford for crying out loud.
Yep.
So I believe the way the bench is continuing to play consistently, which has been an issue with us, I think getting guys like Maxi, Harden, and Embiid back made everything click because those guys continued to perform when they came back and they
Yeah.
found their place on the team. Montrezl Harrell started having a couple of good games, and I expected more from him at the beginning of the year. And I was actually one of the guys talking about, I think we should try and get Andre Drummond back because I thought Drummond was a better fit. But if Harrell's going to do his sixth man of the year type stat line, then I don't mind because
Mm-hmm.
that's what we got him for. We got him to step up off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And in those wins that I mentioned, they had wins against the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Pelicans, who were all pretty notable teams in the West. And I know you're going to say, oh, the Lakers aren't that good. They're not going anywhere. But they are also one of the hotter teams at the moment.
Yeah.
Just made a trade today for Rui. And Pels were number 1 seed for a while. The
Yeah.
Clippers got Kawhi and Paul George back. We actually came back in that game and beat those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives us a little bit of hope. Honestly, I don't think a team has a chance against us unless they have somebody to defend Embiid.
Yeah.
Zubac is not defending us.
You had the Sacramento game too without Embiid and Harden, and you came back from 21 down in that game on the last game of a 5-game road trip.
Yeah, our team, I want to say our team finally has heart because it feels like in past years our team didn't want to fight and they're just casual and we're like, we get into playoffs, we do whatever. But I think having a guy like PJ Tucker signing and Maxi on the team, who are usually fighters for any team that they're on, really helps like the culture of our team in the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So What's your team? I know you got an interesting one too.
Yeah, I
So
can't argue with any of that because obviously, we both grew up in Pennsylvania, so we're both Sixers fans. So we're both very happy to see the Sixers doing well. It does feel the most real this year out of any other year the Sixers have been like semi contenders because they're showing signs of championship caliber. Coming back from 20 points down without your two star players, going on a 5 game road trip and winning all 5 games. That kind of stuff matters. So, but because for the sake of the show, I'll choose a team other than the Sixers. And I'll go with the Grizzlies. I really like the Grizzlies for a couple of reasons. And number one, obviously, they went on like that 11-game win streak. They're gritty. They're really, really gritty. I like Dylan Brooks, even though he's a little bit of a crackhead. I think he's a little bit too overzealous sometimes, but he's got a fighter in him. Like you said, like that PJ Tucker kind of like bulldog fight instinct. I think is a lot of Dylan Brooks. He matches up really well with Ja. And speaking of Ja, I think to be a successful team in the NBA playoffs, you have to have a guy. You have to have a guy that can close games. You have to have a guy that can give you 30. You have to have a guy that can make the play, whether it be scoring, dishing, like whatever it is. You have to have a guy. I think Ja is that guy. I think he proved in the Warriors series last year that he is the guy. Even though he went down in that series, you have to remember Memphis was up 3-2. Memphis was in a really good spot to win that series, and Ja got hurt. But there's really nothing he could do about it. But if I was Ja Morant, I would be feeling like we were going to win that series if that wasn't the case. So I'm going to take the Grizzlies just because I think they have a guy. I think they got a lot of that same kind of fighter mentality, and they're young. So even if it's not this year, they're up and coming, and they're definitely going to get farther in the playoffs this year than they did last year, I think. So moving on from that, though, we're going to jump into sort of like another quick segment. It's not going to be like timed or anything. But we're just going to do buy and sell stuff since we're coming up on the trade deadline in the NBA. So I'm just going to go through a list of names here that I think Bender or that I think are on the trade block or teams have considered trading. There's been news about them, and we're going to hear whether Bender thinks those teams are going to buy or sell. So if it's a buy, that means that those teams are going to kind of keep that player around. If it's a sell, that means they're going to get rid of that player for something. And the first player I was going to ask you about was Rui Hachimura, but obviously he just got traded today. So first, I'll just ask you quick thoughts on that, and then we'll jump into that buy or sell.
yeah, I like it. I don't think it's enough though for the Lakers. I understand what the Lakers are trying to do, but I think they would need to move bigger pieces to make me think otherwise. Um, I thought they would have been a team to go after DeRozan or Beal or Levine because there was talk about the Bulls players wanting out, kind of, sort of, a little
Mm-hmm.
bit ago. And I thought they'd kind of pounce on that, but they didn't. I believe that's because Russell Westbrook's playing so well and AD was playing well before he got hurt again.
Yeah,
I don't know why they continue to give hope in the AD situation, but that's for a different day.
yeah, very
So
different
what
day.
what you got for me, dude?
Yeah, all right. So let's jump into buy and sell. First player is Pascal Siakam.
I think they buy. I don't think they're ready to move on from him yet. I think if they trade anyone, it'll be either OG or Gary Trent.
John Collins.
I think they'll sell him, and I think there might be something brewing between the Hawks and the Pacers potentially for a Collins Turner swap. I saw that online a little while ago. Um, I think both teams are very hesitant to trade those guys, but I wouldn't be surprised if the swap happens.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. Russell Westbrook.
Oh, he's staying. Bye. No, yeah, no.
Jakob Pertl.
Oh, he's staying too. Bye.
Cam Reddish.
So Thibodeau don't like him at all. I don't know why. That Thibodeau has his ways and just doesn't like playing young guys. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, a lot like Doc. Some of the older coaches don't like playing young guys, but Terrence Ross.
They've been trying to trade him for so many years. I don't think that changes at all. I think it's buy.
Harrison Barnes.
Oh, buy the King. The Kings are actually performing well. So
Yeah, yeah. How about Gary Trent Jr.?
Goner, he's sold. I don't know what for, but I saw comments earlier in the year about like you're supposed to be a good defender. Like what happened? Because
Yeah,
his defense was not up to par with what his standards are set to be. Gary Trent kind of made a comment, kind of shrugging it off. So I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of stirred something up in the front office for him. But
and maybe even the locker room, for all we know. Miles Turner. Yeah,
That's my guy. I just met him today, man. He's such a nice dude. You know what? Bye, because I hope he don't leave. That is
that's
my
dope.
guy.
That's dope. Yeah, and by the way, congrats to Bender. He just started an internship with the Pacers. You see his new
Yeah,
stuff here.
I got to rep a little bit. So
Yeah, yeah, which is pretty awesome. That's super cool. All right, last name, and then we'll finish the show here with like some way too early draft predictions. We're just gonna talk like top 10 draft in the NFL and just see if we think like any outlandish stuff is gonna happen, any big trades, that kind of thing. We'll finish the show with that. But the last name Bender is gonna be Jay Crowder.
hmm, I think that's bye. I think he stays unless there's some kind of 3-team deal where the Suns can get Eric Gordon. Again, another player that the Rockets have always like floated out there but never actually traded. So I'll believe it when I see it, but I think that's the only case he gets moved.
Yeah, yeah. Eric Gordon's an interesting guy. It's hard for me to imagine him making a difference on a championship team.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah,
So
let's wrap this up. Let's talk just talk real quickly about some, so like just like the top 10 picks in the NFL. The main reason we want to talk about this, I think, is because Chicago being at number 1 and having Justin Fields. So what do you think is going to go down with that?
yeah, so I'm going to give you my little order here first, and then I'll talk about the trade that I think is going to occur and how that might stir things up. Um, in this order, I have Bryce Young first, Will Anderson, DN from Georgia, second, Jalen Carter, D tackle from Georgia. I
Bama.
actually have him
Will
going,
Will Will
or
Anderson's Bama, right? Will Anderson Jr.
I thought it was Georgia. Maybe he's Bama.
Let me check that
Either
real
way,
quick.
yeah, you might want to check that. But
Yeah, he's Bama. He's
Will
Bama.
Anderson, Bama. All right. Well,
But anyway, continue. He's still, yeah,
there's that.
consensus top
Yeah.
5 pick for
So
sure.
I have Jalen Carter to replace J.J. Watt on the Cardinals.
Mm.
Um, Will Levis going to the Colts just because the Colts like their really weird and random quarterbacks.
Yep.
Brian Brees, um, CJ Stroud going to the Lions. I think they're going to be like Jared Goff's not enough, regardless of how well he played. Because I feel like they don't have a good enough defense to say they can deal with a game managing quarterback. I have Peter Skoronsky from Northwestern going to the Raiders because I feel like they made a bunch of offseason moves that last season that they thought were good enough, and I think they'll give it one more try, see if there's like a quarterback change or see if Tom Brady lands there or something like that. Jordan Addison, wide receiver, Miles Murphy, the end, and Joey Porter Jr. I actually have Joey Porter going to the Eagles, which would be a hometown landing there.
Huh.
Backtrack. The number 1 and number 2 overall picks, I think, will be swapped. I think that the Bears may trade Justin Fields for how crazy that sounds. And I know Justin Fields was running all over the place trying to carry that team. But I think getting the number 1 overall pick, they will trade and like trade down, get a quarterback, get Bryce Young, along with a bunch of other picks to build around Bryce Young. Because I feel like one first round pick isn't enough to be like, yeah, Justin Fields is going to be good. So again, that's another team that was looking at maybe Devontae Adams lands there if the Raiders decide to blow things up. Maybe Hopkins goes there. You see guys like Jalen Hurts getting AJ Brown in the offseason. Just like the wide receiver acquisitions are helping a lot of these young quarterbacks. So maybe they go that route, but
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. So what do you have in your top 10?
The Bears tried with the wide receiver acquisition, and they gave the 2nd-round pick to the Steelers for play bum, which is kind of interesting and funny as a Steelers fan. So, but yeah, I don't disagree, except for the Bears trading Justin Fields. It would be hard for me to imagine them trading Justin Fields. He's going to go into his 3rd year next year. Contracts make a big deal in the NFL. I think they make a really big deal. Having a max kind of QB on a rookie deal is a lot you could build around. So Even if they would go like I just don't see them resetting themselves like 2 more years again and going back to another rookie QB when they could be in the third year of development and then just spend that number one overall pick on maybe something that's not as flashy. Like if they tried for some flashy stuff, maybe they go an edge player or maybe they take Will Anderson number one overall. I don't. I do like a lot of the picks that you had there in the top 10. A lot of those players have been floating around, as consensus top 5, top 10 picks for a while. Um, but I think the Chicago Bears, instead of actually trading Justin Fields, I think they're going to trade away from the number one pick. I think they're going to trade that number one pick maybe for like a first and a third and drop back a little bit because there's a lot of cornerback depth, there's a lot of offensive tackle depth, and there's a lot of edge depth in this draft. I think. So that being said, the Bears can trade that number one pick. They can drop down to somewhere between 8 and 20 in the first round, and then pick up a second or third rounder along with that, and then get a couple of really high caliber prospects still, and not have to completely blow things up. So I think that might be the more of the direction that they would go, but it would definitely be entertaining to see them trade Justin Fields. That would be entertaining for sure. It'd be exciting to see. But I think that's going to be about it for the podcast today. Bender, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, expect another podcast or two in February. We'll be talking about the Super Bowl results. I believe that'll be our next episode, and seeing if our predictions are correct on that one. See where playoff predictions for basketball as well, the NBA, because I believe we'll be approaching not just the trade deadline, but the All-Star break. So we have some interesting events coming up, and just got to see what's going on. Just got to stay tuned and hear us out.